Meristem Securities expects the mood in the Nigerian equities markets this month to be broadly positive, with expectations that dividend markdown will present attractive buying opportunities for investors looking to enter the market. Damilare Ojo, Head of Investment Research at Meristem Securities, joins me now for more updates. Damilare, thank you for taking the time out to join us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're anticipating a positive outlook or run at the equities markets for the month of April. So far, the market we've seen some positive returns year to date, but talk to us about what would boost this sentiment and to the extent to which the market can sustain it.
Thank you. So if you look at the past couple of months in the Nigerian equities market, what you've seen for about 5 months before the month of March is that the market has been very much positive, having positive returns. But in the month of March, a couple of things, of course, globally, we are having different crises in the financial system, and that also trickled down into the domestic equities market, in the Nigerian equities market. And coupled with that is the fact that there are some negative corporate actions, especially on one of them was a large cap stock, which was Seplat. We were having issues with corporate governance, and those are some of the things that affected the market in the month of March. And when you look at the month of April, which we've just started, you would see a couple of companies have released their earnings results, their financial statements, and they are seeing positive results. Even for the banks that a lot of people were skeptical about, you are seeing positive results broadly in the in the sector, in that banking sector, and you're having good, dividends, higher dividend than the market was even expecting. So that is one of the things that we think would shape the market mood in the month of April. Hunt for dividend is one major factor that spurs positive sentiment in the Nigerian equities market. And in addition to that, you have a couple of stocks being marked down for dividend as their closure date falls in the month of April. So when stocks are marked down for dividends like that, it also presents buying opportunities for investors, and that is also something we are looking at as a factor that can also drive the all-share index upwards in the month of April.
I was going to ask you about the good re-entry point for stocks that investors will have on their radar. What names come to mind for you? What would you say that is the fundamental support? Yes, they're a good re-entry point, but do the fundamentals support a buying decision?
So a couple of names come to mind. For instance, you have a stock like Zenith Bank. Zenith Bank is going to be marked down in the month of April, in this month, despite the fact that they recorded a decline in their profits in 2022. Of course, we know what has happened, and that has been discussed earlier in the show. And but fundamentally, it's still a very sound name to go by. And you also have Opomo Oil. You have Seplat. The major issue with Seplat, like I mentioned earlier, for the month of March, is the corporate governance issue they are having. Of course, investors are looking at that, and how that plays out is going to also determine what the overall sentiment is going to be. But in terms of the fundamental of the company, it is also a very strong business to look out for. Similarly, you have a company or a stock like Stanbic, you have Total. These are fundamentally sound stocks, and they also, had good dividend declarations, and they are going to be marked down in the month of April. And those are some of the names that come to mind when we are talking about good entry points, together with fundamentally fundamental, being strong.
Also, and still, from a value proposition perspective, let's talk about the consumer goods sector. I always like to go first to the brewery stocks, and of course, how they go from season to season. When people are happy, they drink. When they're depressed, they drink. So it's always a good season to, for the brewery guys. But talk to us. What is your outlook? What is the upside for them this year?
We just concluded the 2023 general elections, or maybe not yet concluded. Since there are still some court cases, but of course, that activity took place. And you had, on a light note, you had some governors promise some of their you know, electorates beer if they win the elections. You know, that's just on a lighter note. But I mean, generally speaking, Nigeria is in, or maybe a part of Nigeria is in a good mood, and a part of Nigeria is also in a bad mood. And like you said, whether in good mood or in bad mood, people drink anyway. So that is one thing that is going to lead to, you know, higher earnings, or maybe not talk of earnings, higher revenue first for the breweries sector. But in terms of earnings now, you know, there's still inflation, there's expectation of high inflation. I mean, just a couple of minutes ago, you've just discussed inflation, and the fact that oil subsidy is going to be removed is one major, or is likely to be removed, you know, is one major um, driver, or, you know, negative factor for inflation in Nigeria. And if that happens, that might impact margins for the brewery sector, for the consumer sector generally. And of course, that is going to have, you know, put a limit on how earnings would grow in 2023. But on the general, we are expecting that results are still going to be good in 2023. There is really, apart from inflation and the fact that FX issues that we have, but companies always have a way of dealing with that. It affects their earnings at the end of the day, but it's only would limit the extent of growth. You know, overall, we are still expecting that there would be positive top line and bottom line
Uh,
for the brewery sector.
All right, we have about 60 seconds left. Is there any stock that, in your view, so far has outperformed, has beat your expectations in terms of performance, either from fundamentals, you know, just price increase, upside, etc.?
I think one of the stock is Fidelity. Another one is I mean, let me speak to Fidelity is in terms of the price performance. It has actually performed better than we expected. And by the time I mean, the financials for 2022 is also going to, is expected to be positive anyway. So that's also a positive for them as the outlook is. And another one is, you know, is Zenith and GTCO. This year so
Right.
far, they've had positive returns, you know, despite what is happening in the global financial system. So that's also some positives.